If you guys haven't yet, like and subscribe to whatever channel you're watching this on, and then take a minute and hop over to @KRTD Media on YouTube and subscribe to their channel, because they're the ones who put this on today, and we're simulcasting to various different platforms. There's JB, there's Sabby. I'm going to be cutting out of here for you guys to take over this. Happy New Year to you guys. You guys have a good countdown and an awesome show. Welcome, everyone, to the New Year's Eve countdown panel. Does everyone want to introduce themselves real quick? Sabby, you got your cameras on.
Sorry.
Okay.
I had to grab. I forgot my drink. What's up? I'm Sabrina, also known as Sabby, and I host Sabby Sabs podcast, and I'm a co-host for Revolutionary Blackout Network with my comrade JB.
Hey everybody, my name is James Fauntleroy, also known as JB. I am part of the Revolutionary Blackout Network, and I have my own channel called the JB Font Channel. It is good to see all of you here on this New Year's Eve. So, salutations to all.
Okay. Everybody knows Jason from earlier in the other two panels. You can introduce yourself again if you like.
All right. Jason Call, two-time candidate for Congress as a Democrat. Will never run as a Democrat again, and looking for better things in 2023, right?
And our newest KRTD media host, Willy Bragg.
Hey, I'm Willy Bragg, host of the Willy Bragg Show. The latest person to join KRTD Media, and Happy New Year to everyone.
Okay. And Jimmy, again.
Hi again, I am Jimmy, host of What on KRTD Media. Good to see you guys. Good to be back. And I am the editor for tonight. I will be showing the videos.
Cool. So Jimmy worked for hours on this video, and I haven't seen it yet.
Right.
Nobody has seen it yet. Let's go ahead and see it.
All right. Thank you for putting your full faith and trust in my editing skills. May the odds be forever in your favor. All right. Okay, let me get this full screen, and here we go.
Talking about the new information that's come to light with a witness that has now changed the story.
This story should be huge.
It was Sunderland. The witness who has a documented history of sociopathy and has received several convictions and receiving a promise of immunity from prosecution.
He was recruited by U.S. authorities to build a case against Assange after misleading them to believe he was previously a close associate of his.
But then the key witness, with hands, admits that he lied. He made stuff up in order to get immunity from the FBI.
Worse than that, actually, he just had evidence that he made it all up.
Julian Assange is doing the job that an actual journalist should do. I mean, this is a guy who's a hero for exposing what was actually going on in our wars.
All right, you guys, there is number 10 of the top 10. The Julian Assange witness comes clean. Anyone have anything to say about that?
I just want them. I just want them to free Julian Assange.
Yes.
Like, to me, it's just. I'm just so tired of it. I just want him to be free. Just let him go, and so he can go back with his family. It's just been too long, and I don't understand the point of it anymore now.
We're all Julian Assange, as far as I'm concerned, and if he's not free, none of us are free. And if he's in jail for 175 years under the Espionage Act, that's freedom of speech, freedom of the press is a thing of the past. He needs to be freed at all costs.
Yeah, wasn't he given immunity because of his alleged association with Julian Assange. But then they found out that he was basically BSing. Wasn't he given some type of immunity by the feds? I can't remember. I'm trying to remember.
Is this the one who was the pedophile who was given immunity? There's been so many witnesses now.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so, from what I remember.
Correct.
Well, this honestly gives us more insight about our government, doesn't it? Because they're willing to know this type of information about this person, and yet they want to give him immunity against Julian Assange, even though we know that Assange really is just a journalist doing a journalist's job. So really, that should tell people more about their government and the lengths that they're willing to go to in order to silence somebody who uncovered the dark underbelly of what our government's doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the basic thing he was a pedophile and he had some loose association with Julian. Mm-hmm. So he was brought up on all these charges, but then decided, I'll give up Julian Assange if you give me immunity. And they knew he was going to lie on the stand, but they allowed him to do that because they wanted to use that to build their case against Julian. Then it came out that the feds knew that he was going to lie, and then I think they withdrew the deal or something, but it just shows that they were willing to let a witness lie in order to get this, get this guy, stay in jail. So disgusting.
Yeah, I think JB said what I was going to say, which is you get to see the lengths at which our own government will go to protect their own interests, and remember, their interests are not our interests.
It's disgusting. Free Julian Assange.
Yeah.
All right. So I already saw one place I was messed up. So I don't remember what number 9 is, and it was titled Julian Assange. So we're just gonna have to watch the video. It's a surprise. I don't know. We're gonna find out. Like I said, maybe I'll be forever in your favor. So here we go. Number 9.
But we do want to talk about the migrant caravan heading up to Martha's Vineyard, courtesy of Governors Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis.
DeSantis took responsibility for the 2 charter flights last week, saying they were part of a state program to relocate migrants from Florida, although the group of Venezuelans was in San Antonio.
He deported immigrants at Florida's expense from Texas to Martha's Vineyard. That is somebody who simply wants to insert himself into Greg Abbott's stunt.
So Governor Baker has stepped in and has moved them from Martha's Vineyard to Cape Cod.
They have proven that the sanctuary cities is just name only. And of course, these Republican governors know that in these states, there are areas which are not sanctuary cities in which people then get deported back.
And here we're seeing Democrats, we're going to welcome them with open arms, and they're not following through.
That's the liberal way of saying, I don't want you here.
I'm sorry for the way that these people are treating you, Democrats and Republicans. Democrats for moving you to different, to like the base and not really doing anything to help you out, even though they're saying all over the news that they are. And I want to also apologize for Republicans for using you all as a pawn for a political statement, because that is exactly what it is.
I hope that all these migrants are able to get on their feet, able to actually set up good lives for themselves. I hope that. I wish for the best for them.
All right, there you have it. That is DeSantis. I'm not going to remember the other guy's name. Moving migrants from Texas to Martha's Vineyard. And go.
I'll just say, as someone who lives in Massachusetts, Martha's Vineyard is vacant most of the year. So it's usually, those homes are usually only, occupied during the summer. Anytime before or after that, those homes are open. So they definitely could have let those migrants stay there. They chose not to, though, because, again, like they say they want to help people, but they don't want it in their backyard. Martha's Vineyard is usually where a lot of wealthy people live there. I mean, it's not like low income or poor people that live in Martha's Vineyard. So Cape Cod is kind of seen as a working class, middle class version of Martha's Vineyard. So that's why they sent them from Martha's Vineyard to Cape Cod, but they definitely had room for them there.
As somebody who's a Florida resident under the jurisdiction of the DeSantis regime, it's kind of baffling at the fact that they flew over hundreds, if not thousands, of homes that are completely empty that could have housed these immigrants who largely are refugees. Instead, they decided to send them and deport them up north just so to prove a political point. Isn't DeSantis supposed to be a Christian? Isn't he supposed to be one that says, oh, we have to be good to the people? What is that in the Bible that he espouses to believe in, that they talked about bringing and welcoming immigrants into their midst as if they are part of their people? And yet he doesn't do that. And then the Democrats who tried to say they espouse the same thing, they also are guilty of doing a lot of the same things that the Republicans are doing. They just do it with a smile on their face. It's as if they really don't believe in what they espouse that they believe in.
Greg Abbott just did the same thing, sending immigrants up to, I believe it was Kamala Harris's residence in the DC area, I think. And the way, listen, Democrats got their problems, but what these two Republican governors have done in this instance is despicable. It's disgusting. It's dangerous to the lives of those immigrants. And the thing that both parties seem to be forgetting here is that asylum is a right, and most of these people are seeking asylum from political and economic oppressions that our own government has created all around the world. We absolutely need to get our immigration courts back up and running and make sure that everybody who comes to this country gets their due process. I mean, literally, that is what we should be doing and what both parties are failing at.
So just to interject here, two things. So we had DeSantis do it and we had Abbott do it. Yet we've had nobody, not even any kind of virtual signaling, talking about any kind of consequences for these actions, because there's no, probably because there's no specific laws in place about busing people or sending people on planes to random places while they're in the middle of our legal process to seek asylum. I don't think there's any law that addresses that at this moment, and that might be something that needs to be discussed, because this has never been an issue before until Sanchez and Abbott made this something that they do on a regular basis.
The way I look at it is I saw good old-fashioned human trafficking going on with DeSantis and Abbott's action, and and in particular with DeSantis, he's got presidential aspirations right now, and let's face it, he's the Augusto Pinochet of Florida. I mean, he really is, and the guy has fascist impulses. I mean, and this is the sort of thing he does for a broader culture war narrative, and we're talking about just recently finding out how much he enjoys torture in Guantanamo Bay. Tells you everything you need to know about this prick in Florida. And somebody who's more dangerous than Donald Trump. He's Donald Trump without the comedy show.
And he used taxpayer money to send them to, by the way, for people who are not aware.
Well, just to also prove a point, a lot of times this doesn't really get talked about, but the Democrats and Republicans are really one and the same. I read this basically on an article from the World Socialist website, and it actually brings out the point about what happened, what Greg Abbott did, and says in reality, the Democrats are not merely complicit, they're an active participant in this assault on migrant workers. The day before the migrants arrived in Washington, D.C., Dozens of migrants were dumped at a bus station in San Diego, California by the Border Patrol, part of the Federal Department of Homeland Security, directed by Biden's appointee, Alejandro Mayorkas. So they are basically doing the same thing. It's just the Democrats that are doing it don't get as much coverage in doing it, but they're doing the exact same thing that the Republican governors are doing as well.
Maybe if we're lucky, they'll address this in 15 years. Maybe. Possibly.
All right. That was a great conversation, you guys. I have to really shout out, when I was editing that little compilation right there, Sabby, you made some really, really, really good points on that episode. I'd really go tell everyone to go check out that episode about it. Because what you brought up there and you didn't bring up now is like still kind of like the class apartheid that is going on in all of these communities as well. So that was a really, really good episode. I enjoyed watching it. All right, here we go.
This is a little crazy. It's gonna sound a little nutty, but it's real.
San Francisco police consider letting robots use deadly force.
Approved a controversial draft policy that would allow police robots armed with explosives to use lethal force against suspects as a last resort option.
I'm not sure this technology is good because it could lead us in a bad direction. It could lead us in a dystopian sci-fi movie direction where, you have like fucking RoboCop out there shooting people.
When I first heard about this story, immediately I thought of this episode from Black Mirror. Now, originally, these dogs were designed to keep out criminals.
Excuse me, I'm concerned that these robots could kill people in greater numbers. I disagree with the premise of that question. No, you make a good point. Apologies.
All right, so that is the San Francisco police approving of robot police bots, I guess. I don't know what to call them. Your guys' opinions on that?
Well, the first thing that I saw, that I thought of when I saw that article was that very same RoboCop, the original 1987 RoboCop clip that you showed right there. That was the first thing that came to mind. You know what? This is just another way to militarize the police, and it's absolutely crazy. Anybody who thinks this should be implemented, this is a good thing to implement as some sort of drone option. Out of your minds. Out of your minds. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, and I want to point out to people, it's happening in a blue city. San Francisco is pretty liberal for the most part. So where was Nancy Pelosi's response on this? It's just like San Francisco has one of the largest homeless populations in the United States. So it's just like, obviously there's going to be certain groups that are going to be targeted, and homeless people are one of those groups because they're just not protected and they get harassed by the police often. So it's just, to me, it's very dangerous, and it's not just San Francisco. I mean, I used to work at MIT. They're already working on these robots. We already have robot dogs at the border. So they're just increasing that type of technology, which is very scary.
So this morning I interviewed 2024 presidential independent candidate Michael Dean, and he had looked into this a little bit, and he said that every single one of them, I think he says he thinks or he's not sure, but every single one of these is lethal. There's no gas, robots. There's no, stun option. All of them are weaponized and have guns and are meant to shoot to kill. So they haven't even thought of, well, what if we had something that's meant to stun? That's not even a consideration. They're going for the kill. So there's not even going to be, any kind of decent option here.
One of the things I wonder is, and you see stories like this, and then people scoff at defund the police. Because this is billions of dollars that is used in order to attack people who are mostly in poverty. Because what is the main source of why people commit crime? It is poverty. Therefore, this is to attack and potentially kill poor people. That's basically what it is. Right? So when people talk about, oh man, this is dystopian, this is really for the poor people. And so when people look at something like this, First of all, is this fiscally responsible? It's actually more fiscally responsible to house the homeless. It's more fiscally responsible to nationalize our healthcare system. It's more fiscally responsible to provide education for everyone. All these things are more fiscally responsible. It's actually more fiscally responsible to create a more egalitarian society so we won't need this. And yet, when we talk about taking and rerouting that money from police and law enforcement in order to uplift the people so that we won't have poverty anymore, then you get people go, oh, well, that's socialism. You're damn right it's socialism, but guess what? You're also not killing a bunch of people in order to do it. In order to fund the prison industrial complex, which also helps fund the military industrial complex, which is being used in order to fund the police more, in order to, guess what, kill poor people because of the inflated crime rate, because what is poverty that increases crime. It's crazy.
Well, if I can add just one more thing, just to add on to what Jay said there, is that as soon as these robots do shoot some rich motherfucker, you'll see them getting taken off the street right away.
Wow,
we have AI, artificial intelligence, and it's supposed to theoretically make our lives easier, where we can work less and be paid more. That sort of thing. It's supposed to be for our comfort. It's doing just the opposite. It's making us work harder, broadly speaking, being paid less, and we're being more what's the term? We're being monitored, and we're just a massive police state. And I don't see any socialism around us anywhere. We're not anywhere close to socialism. I mean, in fact, I see the country moving further right policy-wise. So, when people say we're moving towards socialism, what the hell y'all talking about? We're moving towards socialism. I see no such a thing. This is the 11th term of Ronald Reagan's presidency, as far as I'm concerned.
Hey, did you guys ever get to see the movie I, Robot?
Mm-hmm.
This is basically I, Robot. Next thing you know, you're going to have one of these robot dogs go, my logic is undeniable. It's going to be crazy.
Don't scare me before 2023 now. Come on. Going into as happy, I thought. All right, here we go.
AOC had a town hall. Didn't go too well.
Yeah, you've been voting to start this war in Ukraine. You're voting to start a thermonuclear war with Russia and China.
These are the protesters who disrupted the AOC town hall and have since gone viral.
Jose Vega, he interrupted AOC during this town hall.
It's like every time I think our 15 minutes are up, the AOC just does something to bring it back to life.
And he wanted to press her about her funding, her support for the funding to Ukraine.
None of this matters if we're all dead. None of it.
So this idea that you can't criticize progressive politicians, it's a dangerous idea. I'm heavily against it. Every politician should be criticized if they are in the wrong and they are not doing their job.
May your careers be long-lasting. May there not be a nuclear war. Continue to be rude. Continue to be unapologetic. You don't owe anyone a goddamn answer.
Don't worry, AOC is there to help us.
Yeah.
I think this is a good example. I mean, I don't agree with Jose and his friend on everything. They're part of the LaRouche movement. So there are parts where we disagree. But there are certain areas, I think, where we can bridge divides with people. Anti-war movement, we need to be talking to people who are libertarians and people who are part of the LaRouche movement, because they are anti-war. They're against sending all this money to Ukraine. They do not want a nuclear war. And I think what people may not realize is that if we're just going to try to build something with people on the left, then we're not going to get anywhere, because the left in this country is very small.
Just to
no, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, just earlier today we did a panel with libertarians and progressives about working together on the anti-war movement and where that's kind of got, so, just funny that you brought that up there.
Well, think about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I mean, she turned out to be one of the biggest charlatans of all times in recent years, and I fell for her charm and her song and dance and her sound bites, just like most of us did, and everything. And by the time of Forced to Vote, between Forced to Vote and selling out the rail workers, I mean, I was like, no, I washed my hands. I washed my hands from the squad, and it breaks my heart to do that. But I mean, what have they brought us? And when Joe Biden got elected, when he got sworn in, there was a time period where many of us on the left criticizing the squad or Bernie, even just a little bit, got a lot of hell from some of the establishment independent media types, your TYTs, your Sam Cedar types, and everything like that. It was like all hell to pay on people that dare criticize the squad or Bernie a little bit, and they're not above criticism. I mean, they're not above criticism. And I'm one of the last people that actually started harshly criticizing Bernie. I'm late in the game doing that, but but now, even Bernie, that I have been like a big time follower of since the 1990s, he's let me down, and we just got to move on past Bernie and the squad, and just keep the movement going without them. And they can do it if they want to, but
Yeah, I'm with Willie on that. I mean, I'm critical of the squad, and I've been, sort of gradually. I mean, if you followed my campaign, I'm hugely critical of the Progressive Caucus, Pramila Jayapal. But I kind of sectioned out the squad and said, you know what? Maybe I still got a little bit of hope in these people. I started to lose it with AOC, and I'm been disappointed with things that Ilhan Omar. So I am in a place where I am definitely willing to be heavily critical of the squad in addition to the Progressive Caucus as a whole. I think the criticisms that these people brought up and the way they did it, I think that that's absolutely fair game. If you want to get attention, I mean, we are in such critical straits with so many issues, and now particularly the war in Ukraine, which very quickly, still on the table, very quickly could develop into a nuclear conflict that would affect the entire globe. Not to mention the Ukrainians that we claim we want to save. So I think it's time to be very aggressive. Again, these guys were LaRouche peoples. I completely am separated. I have no interest in that movement at all. I think they got some whack ideas, not where I am. But on this issue, as we discussed on the panel earlier today, if we can, I don't want to say join, but I'm not going to be critical of what they are doing in this instance, because it's important. And I think the way that AOC came back at them was really betrayed where she came from as supposedly an activist. And camping out in the halls of Congress and outside of Nancy Pelosi's office, and wanting to say, saying things like, we got to be a disturbance to people who are in power, and that she came back and with her response to them saying that they were out of place doing that, that they were being disagreeable. You know what? It is time for being disagreeable, and she is the one who came to her office saying that. And now she backtracks it because it's coming at her. I thought that was pretty gross.
Jason, you actually touched on something that I was talking about earlier. And in fact, Michael Parenti actually spoke about this in his book, In Dirty Truths. But one of the things I think that we have to step away from is this push for civility politics. Civility politics is the tool of the oppressor. They will say, oh, you can't say that. That's too mean. You can't shout. That's just disruptive. And so they say that in order to stifle dissent in something that is wrong. And so this is the same thing that many people in the squad, not just in the squad, but people like Pramila Jayapal, Mark Pocan, Barbara Lee, all of them, they will basically they will hand wring about about us dissenting, and then they'll sit there and then they will vote for things like the Iron Dome, or they will vote for increasing the Capitol Police budget, or they will start sending more money to Ukraine, which inevitably goes to a lot of these different battalions, as often like that funds Nazis in Ukraine. And then they will look at us and go, well, why are you yelling at us? Or why are you saying these things? That's violence, when really the violence is being perpetuated by the same policies that they are either not voting for and just saying present, or they're voting for and actually committing violence not only against people abroad, but also against us as well. And so then we can't say a thing about it, because if we do, then they're our best hope for the future, when really they're displaying that they are not. Because either they're going to be the rotating villain, or they're going to be the rotating hero that keeps things going perpetually, that keeps us in a state of status quo. And every single time we try to say things against them, then it's like, oh, you're being bad. You shouldn't be doing this against the Democratic Party. When in reality, they're the ones that are keeping us stagnant. And in fact, they are basically the white moderates that keep us in that process. Just because you can be a white moderate without being physically white. But the thing is, that's exactly what they're doing. They're holding us back from progress.
Yeah, the other thing too that I was gonna say is that if you look at the activists from like the 60s and the 70s, or like 50s, 60s, and 70s, I think so. If you were to look at them, they were actually more militant than activists are today. So imagine what they would have said to civil rights activists today.
Let's welcome Keaton Weiss from, probably not pronouncing your name right, from Due Dissidence, everybody.
Thank you, man. Thank you, guys. Nice to meet you guys. Nice to see you guys. You were close. It's Keaton Weiss, but it's okay.
Keaton Weiss.
Every assistant principal I've ever had has called me Keaton Weiss, so that's okay.
Sorry about that.
No.
Okay. If I can quickly jump on to what JB said there about the civility politics and just my experience as a two-time candidate for Congress within the Democratic Party, challenging a Democratic incumbent. The biggest criticism that was leveled at me had nothing to do with policy, because people said, yeah, we support Medicare for all. We need to combat homelessness and do housing first policies. They said, but you're so critical of the Democratic Party. We don't like that. It makes us feel bad. And I kept going back with them, but you don't understand that it's the Democratic Party that is a part of the problem. So unless you are willing to change how the Democratic Party operates, stop taking corporate money, start electing people who actually are going to fight for the things that you say you're going to fight for, then yeah, I'm going to be critical of the Democratic Party. And that's what they were hands off on. They were just like, we can't, it makes us feel bad. It makes us feel bad because I'm a good Democrat. And if you're telling me the Democratic Party is bad, then you're telling me I'm bad also. And I don't like that. And we've got to get beyond that and start focusing on policy.
So last thing, on this, and then I'm going to ask Keaton Weiss, if, that's right this time?
No, you were right the second time. So, yeah, that's okay. Weiss, yeah.
Keaton Weiss.
That's okay.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Keaton Weiss if he wants to jump in, but the last thing I'll say is I think everybody in this room, or in this call, is fair, and balanced when it comes to reporting or talking about things. So when we criticize the squad or Bernie, it's not because we don't like them personally. It's not because of any of that. It's because we expect certain things from them. And when they don't deliver things they promised, we have a right to say something. If they delivered the things that they promised to deliver, we would give them credit on the things that they promised to deliver. And we do. On the couple of times where they've done a good thing, we'll talk about that. On the maybe I can count on one hand how many times that was, but I think we're all very fair when it comes to that. If they do the right thing, they get praise. If they do the wrong thing, they're not going to get praise. They're going to get yelled at, because that's how you handle that. You don't give them credit for doing the wrong thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I jumped on is because I saw our little snippet there where we interviewed Kynan and Jose, you know, who called her out at that town hall. And, you know, I know everybody has to put the caveat in there that, you know, we're not LaRouchers. Okay, fine. Those guys were great. Those guys, and one thing those guys were not, from what I learned talking to them, and they actually had Russ and I on their show after that. So overall, I've talked to those guys for probably about 2.5 hours. They didn't seem like cultists to me. The people who seem like they're in the cults are loyal Democratic voters. That's the cult, right? The Democratic Party is the cult. I didn't find those guys to be cultish at all. They were 10 times the independent thinkers that just about any Democrat I've spoke to in the last 10 years are. And so, you know, I think that's something that I think is worth pointing out, because I know, you know, they get scared. They're LaRouche. What's that? It's this weird, scary thing. No, I'm sorry. The Democratic Party is this weird, scary thing. It's just bigger. It's every bit as cultish as whatever movement those guys are in. You have a Ukrainian flag get unfurled in the halls of Congress, and everybody stands up like seals. That's not a cult. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Right? They're just bigger. They're just bigger. And, you know, to the extent that people are disappointed in the squad and AOC and all them, I mean, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was thrilled when she won. And, you know, I'm pretty much on the same page as all you guys regarding where she's at now and where all of the squad is now. But to a certain extent, the joke is on us, right? I mean, when they run for office, like, running for office is not, just categorically speaking, a revolutionary act. It is a very inside the system thing to do. And so, in a certain sense, we're the assholes for expecting them to really rock the boat, right? I mean, Malcolm X didn't run for Congress, right? You know what I mean? Fred Hampton didn't run for Congress, right? Real deal people don't tend to, you know, go inside the system in that way. And so, you know, I think
have a very, very hard time.
I'm sorry.
I said, and when they do, they have a very, very, very hard time and usually don't get anywhere.
Well, sure. We have one really good example. I think, Sabby, you interviewed Cynthia McKinney, and she was someone who did not accept the rules of the system and got thrown out for it.
Yes. Cynthia had a lot to say, especially when it came to Democrat Party leadership. She said that Maxine Waters explained to her that when Democrat leadership tells us to do something, we're going to do it. That's just how it works. So they pushed Cynthia McKinney out. They pushed Dennis Kucinich out. Anybody who goes against the grain, they're not going to let stay there.
You know who else they just pushed out? If I can just throw it out there, is Marie Newman. The Illinois State Legislature, which is fully controlled by the Democratic Party, redistricted her out of her district. She was actually one of the best, sort of quietly, one of the best actual progressives in Congress with the legislation that she was pushing. And I had a meeting with her and a number of other candidates for Congress, and she said exactly what you just said there, Sabby, that when you get there, they take you in a room and they say you are not going to make waves. You know, whatever ideas you think you have coming in here, throw them out the window, because you're basically going to do what we tell you to do. And she fought back against that, just sort of like I said, quietly and legislatively. She fought back against that as one of the best progressives in Congress. And what did they do? They redistricted her, and she lost her race. And so she was a one-term progressive in Congress, and that is what Democratic leadership wanted.
And, you know, the last one, you know, I'll mention for, you know, the old timers is Mike Gravel. He made the Pentagon Papers public. He ran against Obama and all of them. They silenced him. He was a one-term senator. You know, this is what happens to the people who don't follow the rules of the Democratic Party when they get in there.
Well, Lawrence O'Donnell years ago on MSNBC said that the Democratic Party knows about the left, and they know they don't have to listen to the left. Unlike the Republican Party, I'm paraphrasing them. The Republican Party know that they have to listen to their crazies. They got to listen to their Marjorie Taylor Greens, and they have to go and humor these people. But but what they think are the crazies in the Democratic Party on the so-called far left, they're not crazies, but that's how the Democrats view them. That's my take on it. Lawrence O'Donnell said that the Democratic Party doesn't have to take these people seriously, and they don't, and we can see it every time. And I've always argued that we need a labor party in this country at the end of the day. There's no other way out of this. I don't care what you call it, but some kind of a labor party we need in this country. Call it the Green Party, call it the People's Party, call it the Progressive Party. Semantic aside, we need something outside the Democratic Party.
Let's look at the next one. Bear with us.
Sam Bankman-Fried. He decided to start this crypto called FTX.
He created a coin. People bought into it and invested in it. He made a buttload of money. They all wanted to get their money back. And the money was gone. There was nothing there. He already had spent all of it.
FTX's founder and CEO Sam Bankman-Fried was until recently the darling of the crypto community. His company, once valued at more than $32 billion, is now seeking bankruptcy protection.
So 4 FTX customers filed a class action lawsuit against the company and Alameda Research in an attempt to recoup losses following the crypto exchange Chapter 11's bankruptcy following last month.
Hey, hi. I'm SBF, founder and CEO of FTX. My accidental theft of our customers' life savings, listen, giant over leverage upon the slush fund for myself is a tragedy that should never happen.
He's sorry he got caught.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
It was about making money. It was about getting rich in the stock market with this cryptocurrency. It's like they're making a point out of this man, but while the rest of everybody else that corrupt as shit in the stock trading and the stock market schemes and scams get away with it all the time.
Who wants to start? We got to move a little bit faster since, we're only at number 7 now, but who wants to start?
I was just going to say, and he was released on bail. So he had enough money to get out. He had enough money to pay bail. I mean, it's just people like him. I'm pretty sure that he's lawyered up. I'm pretty sure he's going to try to find a way to get out of it. But I don't know. They may try to make an example out of him.
He'll be in a comfortable prison at the worst case scenario for him.
Yeah. The club. He'll be in a new club, a country club. Anybody else? All right.
Should I step down as head of Twitter, I will abide by the results of the poll.
I don't think Elon is really liking the results of this poll.
Almost 58% of them said yes, and 42.5% no.
Elon is all over the place. He wakes up one morning and says, oh, by the way, I'm going to do this now. Oh, change your mind. Psych.
I think Elon is doing a little bit more than a Jeff Bezos right now.
I'm hoping that Elon did this poll as a honeypot to catch all the deep state bots.
But we live in a country where money is speech and corporations are people. The only way we're going to do this is by breaking the system apart, and that's going to be a long uphill fight.
So I don't know if he is the best option for CEO of Twitter right now.
I think you're right on that point. He's not a good option for anything. But he's come up with the first thing he said is we're going to do the $8 a month. What is it? $8 a month Twitter Blue, and I'm going to merge it with the verification checks and all this nonsense. First of all, Twitter never had a really good system for those checks. They were just randomly handing them out. They had applications open for a little while, and they closed the applications. A verification check should be the same thing it is on the crypto platform. You put in your ID, it verifies who you are, and that's who you shouldn't pay $8 a month to be verified, so Elon can use that to fill his pockets.
Yeah, I mean, there's that, but I think part of the discussion was a lot of people were just trying to figure out who should own Twitter besides Elon if he were to step down. And the conversation that me and JB were having is that why are we only looking at this as ownership through the individual instead of looking at this as why isn't Twitter a public utility? Why isn't it a worker co-op? Because none of those platforms exist without our data. And I want people to really think about that. Without our data, Twitter does not exist. YouTube doesn't exist. Google does not exist. So it was interesting to see all these people on Twitter arguing over who should lead Twitter. And I'm like, we should lead it. Like all of us.
It's a common saying. If a service is free, that means that the customer is the product, right? And that's true on social media companies, right? But Sabby, I think you've been great on this whole topic, and we've tried to cover this topic on our show as well, because I think the question you asked there at the end of that little segment that you just did, well, we don't know if he should be the CEO. And I didn't know either, because yes, obviously, I think these tech companies should be either broken up or regulated the way you just said. Absent that, though, would I rather go back to the Jack Dorsey era? No, not at all. I think the fact that these files were leaked to Matt Taibbi and Weiss and all them, not just because she's my sister. No, just kidding. But, I think that's a good thing. I think looking under the hood at how this system operated, because you guys just were talking about AI earlier, right? And how AI has been this tool to sort of suppress labor, to suppress speech, to suppress dissent. The just arbitrary enforcement of arbitrary rules on this platform when the consumer product is speech, right? I mean, the product of these social media companies is speech. It's the dissemination of ideas and, the like. So who would we want to run that? I like to think of Elon Musk as sort of the Donald Trump to Jack Dorsey's Obama, right? Like the Elon Musk Twitter is run by this eccentric Tasmanian devil type madman who, I don't like the results of this poll, I won't abide by it, or, I'm going to rage quit a Spaces event, so I'm just going to disable the whole feature for everybody, right? Like just impulsive, insane, crazy, unfair, not living up to what he actually said he was going to do, which is make it a free speech area, right? We know he has not lived up to that. But if you look at what came before that was the Jack Dorsey era, which is what's being uncovered in these files, which is just very competently managed dog shit, which is what the Obama years were, right? Just a bunch of very smart people who went to very nice schools, right? The Yoel Roths and all them, right? Getting together, messaging on Slack about how they're going to shut people up they don't like and how they're going to rationalize it to the media and to everybody else if they get called out for it. And those were the Obama years, right? The Obama years were a well-managed bureaucratic shit show. And the Trump years were an insanely managed shit show. And that's really the difference between Musk and what came before Musk. And so, yes, obviously, I think all know that the real thing that needs to happen is we have to just take a completely different stance on what these social media companies are and how they ought to be managed, which is collectively, right? Pardon me. But absent that, would I rather have Elon Musk there or Jack Dorsey? No, I'm sorry. I'd rather it be Musk than, the assholes who were running it, a few years ago.
So I just want to interject, I do agree with what you're saying, but, something I do want to talk about, a lot of the people who were there in the Jack Dorsey era, of course, the administrators who were making the policies are not necessarily good people, but when Elon Musk took over, a lot of the programmers and the people at regular jobs lost their jobs. Those people had nothing to do with the Twitter policies, people who were just working there. That's just an unfortunate thing I want to acknowledge. that happened, through that transition. It was thousands of people.
Shane, that's a standard thing that happens under capitalism. This is
absolutely.
I think what happened with Musk here, and I have been greatly entertained over the last few months. I think but I think it's shown that being a billionaire is not a merit thing.
Right.
That I think that's the thing that really got exposed here. You got this guy who is the richest guy in the world, or was, after until he did this stupid ass thing. And he fell flat on his face. I tend to agree with what Keaton says. Sort of watch the shit unfold. We know what these social media companies really should be collectively owned. I mean, they are a vital part of the national discourse at this point. To have them managed in a way that is corrupted is not a good thing for democracy. But yeah, I mean, if you're gonna have somebody running the show, I think it's very entertaining to have somebody who has talked about his merits so much, and you see quite nakedly that he has none at all. I think that's fantastic, and I think that's something that people should really think about.
Okay. A worker, Jay, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Yeah, one of the things I think this was a perfect example of a company that is too big to be private. And by that being said, when you think about the healthcare industry, too big to be private. The fossil fuel industry, too big to be private. So many of these industries, like for instance, this is too big to be private. So therefore, it needs to either be publicly owned or worker owned, one of the two. Because when you look at how it's being ran, in fact, people will be like, well, do you want this corporation to be ran by the government? It already de facto is.
Yes.
Had people looked at the Twitter files, it already was. Now it's just going to be, it should be held more accountable by the people instead of by a private person. So with that being said, no, it's too big to be private.
Well, here's the thing. Censorship has run more amok under Elon Musk's regime. And to the right-wingers, they think that freedom of speech is return Donald Trump's account, cancel culture to left. I have no problem with bringing back Donald Trump's profile on Twitter. I want to see Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis sling mud at each other on Twitter. It's going to be the best entertainment around in the next year or two. But, that's what they think. They think it means silence the left and allow the right wingers to run their mouths. It means free speech for everybody.
I agree with Willie and all of you. If Twitter were a worker cooperative or a publicly owned thing, all those people probably, who didn't deserve to lose their jobs wouldn't have lost their jobs. You would also have a more fair system for regulating the platform. That could be decided. Like, here's the thing. I'm not a fan of Alex Jones. I think what he did was despicable, but they automatically took him off the platform. There should have been a process. Yes, you suspend the account. I'm using him as a random example. Yes, you suspend the account. Yes, you do everything, but maybe you have some kind of hearings or some kind of procedure for how that becomes final. He's a random example. I think his account should be banned, but you don't do that automatically. You have some kind of procedure for that. You suspend the account, and then maybe the public decides, the owner, if it's publicly owned, the public can vote on whether what happened is a bannable offense, whether it's a suspension offense, or whether it's something else. But that's something that Twitter, is never going to have as long as it's owned by Jack Dorsey or Elon Musk or the next billionaire, because Elon's probably going to sell it at this point.
They weren't protesting medicine. The truckers were vaccinated at a higher rate than the rest of the general population in Canada. They weren't protesting medicine. They were protesting authoritarianism and digital IDs.
They were protesting what? Being forced to get vaccinated to cross the border?
When they're giving money to a bunch of peaceful protesters in Canada, hold the line. We have to stop this. What's going on?
Now Canada is the world stage, and everybody throughout the world is watching this. And if supporters around the world want to donate, some here can't see a problem with it.
Well, my husband's not vaccinated. I'm boosted, and it doesn't matter to us. I don't believe we have right to ask people.
Exactly.
Yet people are getting divided on it, and that is critical.
Thoughts?
I'll make this one real quick. I stand in solidarity with the truckers as workers, and the point that I try to get across to people is that even if you didn't agree with what they were protesting over, if you disagreed with that, you should still respect the fact that they are workers and they were being exploited. So I stood in solidarity with the truckers the same way I do with the railroad workers, and I just think back to the fact that with the truckers and the rail workers, we could have really had a general strike in this country because that affects supply chain. But, they had to come in and find a way to shut that down. And that is part of the reason why I believe the truckers were demonized, because they were protesting over the mandates. They had to use that as an excuse. So they were smeared. They were called racist, all these other things. I mean, we have racists in our government. Let's be real. Mm-hmm. So I stood in solidarity with them, and I stand by that. And I just think of how big this could have been if it would have even spread to the United States as well.
Yeah, and given what we know now, and don't worry, Sabby, I'm not going to get your channel in trouble. Given what we know now about the medicine, right? The demonization of them looks all the more absurd, because it's been repeated over and over and over again now. And like I said, everybody knows where I'm going. I won't go there, Sabby, because I don't want to crash the party and get your channel canceled. But we all know what I'm saying, right? We all know what I'm saying. It was not this incredibly selfish and irresponsible act to forego getting a shot. It just wasn't, because of what we know, because of transmission. Like I said, I'm not going to use all the buzzwords that are going to get YouTube on our ass here, but I just, it just seems absurd knowing what we know now. And going back to the other thing, if this were a Twitter live stream, I wouldn't have to speak in codes the way I have to do now because we're on YouTube. So yes, I understand what we're saying about how, yes, certain left voices are still censored off of that platform. If we were on that platform now, I could actually say what I mean without getting Sabby's, fucked up here. You know what I mean? Instead, I have to sound like a moron thinking of code words to say, oh, well, should I say this word, or no, should I say medicine instead of the word that I would like? You know what I mean? It's just absurd. It's just nonsense. And so, yes, absolutely full solidarity with them. No question about it. Full solidarity at the time. In retrospect, it's not even close. It's a joke what they did to those people. It's a joke how they portrayed those people.
I was just say it real quick. As a socialist and a civil libertarian and a supporter of labor, I stand with the truckers, and that's the way people should look at it. And that's all I have to say about that.
Stand with the truckers. Okay.
Elon is not the savior of free speech, but for right now, he is blowing the lid off on big tech, which I think is something that we all have been wanting to say. Please prove us that we were correct, and we are.
This not so much introduces a sort of new revelation, but rather it confirms something that we already knew was happening, which is that they're tampering with people's shit behind the scenes, and not only are they not telling them about it, they're denying it.
So for people saying that the Twitter files are just like opinion and BS, they have documentation. Those are just people trying to simp for Joe Biden. Had it not been for Elon Musk taking over as CEO of Twitter, would we have the Twitter files? Probably not.
Can we just luxuriate over the fact that Sabby said Joe Biden's punk ass? We just gotta luxuriate over that. I love it.
Well, I already said my piece on that one, as you can see.
I think they're telling us we have 1 minute till countdown, Shane.
Okay. Let's try to get through these. Okay.
So the Supreme Court has voted
Happy
to
New Year.
abortion rights. I really cannot believe that in 2022 we are going backwards.
Happy New Year.
Any of the Democratic lawmakers who care about any of the women or spouses that have suffered from abuse? The answer is no.
Because I really believed that community that we were building, the Democratic Party was building, was going to do great things. And that was in my 20s. And then I came to realize that once they get into positions of power, they forget about us and they forget about our needs. And the things that are most sacred to us are still left on the chopping block.
Well, the first thing I do as president is sign the Freedom of Choice Act. That's the first thing. Now, the Freedom of Choice Act is not my highest legislative priority.
Can you please make a $3 contribution to elect Mandela Barnes to the Senate? We need him to be the deciding vote to end the filibuster and codify Roe into law.
We suffered a 1-2 punch at the hands of first the Democratic Party and second served up by the Republicans.
All but one of the squad crossed the picket line, voting with Dem Republican majority to break a rail workers' strike.
Democrats, then Republicans, smite rail labor. These workers come out and explicitly call out both parties.
Should Congress intervene with union contracts? 8% said yes, and 84% said no.
7 sick days was just too much. But these union leaders too, though, they were idiots as well as these railway CEOs.
And honestly, we should have universal sick leave for every workplace in this country anyway.
Seems like if this is the kind of route that they're going, then they need to nationalize this.
Let's get comments on those last two stories real quick because we know we have the next panel coming in.
I'm just going to say one thing to close. I know it's New Year's on the East Coast now. Happy New Year. Kshama Sawant is the most important elected official in this country, hands down, and we need more people like her. Happy New Year.
100%. Happy New Year to you guys as well. I just want to say that I think that Jimmy hit the nail on the head there. If we had, sick pay for everyone in this country, this wouldn't have even been an issue.
Yep. What happened with the rail workers was a shame, and the squad proves that what frauds they are. They are the fraud squad for what they did to the rail workers.
Yeah. Just remember, Roe v. Wade is Obama's top priority. He's still working on it.
Yep. And if we had universal health care, if we had a nationalized healthcare system, number one, we wouldn't have to worry about Roe v. Wade because that would be a medical right for people who have uteruses. And then also we wouldn't have to worry about sick days because people can actually get their health care. It's just a travesty, the fact that this is still an argument in one of the richest countries in the history of the world.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's get started with the next panel then.
Medicare for all.
Happy New Year from Georgia, by the way.
Yes, Happy New Year. I still have 1 more hour. I'm in Central.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.